Let's see in 5 seconds who's walking away with this monitor. 4, 3, 2, 1. Hit it, Kevin.
Okay. There we go. Yes, the ultra wide. So one monitor that acts like two monitors, basically side by side on one display. So well, we had a lot of people.
Beth's right behind him.
So close.
So
Tony
close.
is really excited. Do we have Tony online?
Sorry that I don't have a camera.
That's all right.
That's all right. Congratulations.
Thank you. I seem to be
No,
good at
not
this.
having a camera is you're disqualified.
Full disclosure, I hung out for the majority of the 20, I don't know how many hours it's been. So I'm on my second energy drink. So I think that improved my speed.
And where are you based, Tony?
I'm in Bulgaria.
Bulgaria. Okay. Well, congratulations. Please leave your details with the tech crew. That's awesome.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations. All right, we're going to move into monitor calibration with Gregg Loewen, who's joining us from New England. Gregg, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Luke. Thanks for having me here. This has been a fun event. I'm just waking up today, got my coffee on hand and getting going.
Nice. Well, it's beer o'clock here in Taiwan, but I'll cheers to your coffee, and I'll let you and Kevin kick this off. So let's get right into it.
So, Gregg, first tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, what your speciality is.
Well, my specialty is color science and video calibration and video engineering. I've been doing this for 20 years now. You know, I am actually one of the few ICA people that's not a colorist full time. You know, I do video calibration. I've worked for a variety of organizations. The largest was THX. I initiated and created and trained for them for 12 years. And then they got out of the post-production business. I've been with the ICA now for 5 years, I believe, 4 to 5 years. And we created the Professional Video Alliance, the PVA group, about 2.5 years ago. So the PVA group is, we teach for ICA, and we actually certify ICA students that come into the program as PVA certified video professionals.
And so basically you carried on the THX certification as PVA, is that correct?
Sort of, yes. PVA, the THX had standards, but it was nice to separate from them because THX did some things very well and they did some things kind of questionably, especially over the last 10 years as technology has really increased and progressed. They weren't really able to keep up with that. So I was able to break from them on a few things and, you know, better talk about best practice, I think.
Sure. And you work with not just colorists, but home entertainment systems and some of the higher end home theater installations. Is that right?
Yeah. So the Professional Video Alliance, as the name implies, it goes over a variety of different industries. You know, whether we're in post-production or we're talking about performance home theater, or we're talking about certain cell phone manufacturers. If you have a display or a product that emits light, it should be calibrated to a certain standard or a standard, whatever that standard is. So whether we're in performance home theater or we're in post-production specifically, I mean, we're doing the same thing. And a lot of times we're doing it to some of the same monitors. You know, the screen size might be a little bit different or something, but I mean, we're actually, you know, it's 100% the same process. So it's bringing different groups together that all require or desire, you know, video standards and video calibration.
Absolutely. And well-calibrated home systems make us colorists so happy. It's not enough to calibrate our own systems. We want everybody else to have calibrated systems. Do you want to talk us through some of the basics?
Yeah, I know we're running a little short on time, but whenever I talk about video calibration, let me just actually here, I'm going to attach a file here that people can grab onto, and they can actually it's actually a calibration checklist here. So you just bear with me for a second. I'll find that and get that to you.
Is that going to go into the chat?
It's going to go into the the chat group as soon as I can
Nice.
find it here. Here we go. Okay, so people can download that, and so this is a checklist, a steps 1 through 10 how to calibrate a monitor. It's taught within the PVA program, so there might be a couple things that are kind of specific to the training, but you should be able to grab that and go through the checklist to calibrate a monitor. But when we're calibrating a monitor, we always have to separate the black and white signal, or the white balance, from the color part of the signal. I like to refer to it as the canvas versus the paint when you're creating a painting. If the canvas has a color skew to it, or the canvas isn't set up correctly, say the canvas is blue as an example, whenever you put the paint on top of the canvas, that blue will come through into the paint, and the colors will never be accurate because the base wasn't correct. And I like to use this analogy consistently and continuously during the training. So even when you look at the monitor behind me, and I'll just use the main camera. So we have a reference image on the display, and when you turn the color control down to 0, you go to a black and white image, or that's referred to as the luminance signal. So on a color TV set, the luminance signal is made up of red, blue, and green pixels to create black and white. And then we make that black and white to a certain color balance, which we refer to as D65. And then once we get that properly set up, which also includes setting the black level correctly, setting the contrast correctly, setting the light output correctly, and setting the gamma response correctly, then we can look at the colors that sit on top of that layer. So it's pretty straightforward once you understand the process, and then at that point it's just trying to figure out how every manufacturer implements their menu systems and how to navigate that properly. So I don't think there shouldn't really be a lot of mystery to it. It's just, in the PVA we teach there's a standardized methodology to this, and once you understand what the standardized methodology is, you can work on a display you've never worked on before, but you follow the process, and you can go from point A to point Z being a calibrated image, in a reasonable length of time, and be quite confident that your monitor is going to be.
Oh. I think you've gone into freeze there, Greg.
Am I on here?
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, the whole place went down. That's the second. We knew we were going to test Zoom over a 24-hour period.
We're breaking the sucker.
Yeah.
So I have the new Dell monitor behind me, the HDR 4K monitor, 1000 nits, 2000 zones. It's still in the box. Haven't been able to take it out. And in the next week, I'm going to pull it out and take it through a whole bunch of scenarios and testing, and we're going to do that live, and we're going to do it as a calibration session. So you go to the International Color Academy on the Facebook page, and you can sign up for that. I'll have the link up in the next day, and
Nice.
we'll have some fun doing that, and you see how good this monitor is, and put it through its paces. And I'm looking really forward to a $5,000 monitor and seeing what 1000 nits can do in that price point. So I'm really excited about it, actually.
Indeed.
Great.
And Greg, just to be clear, when you do your training classes, that covers not just a particular display technology, but all of the different monitor technologies and projectors as well.
Yeah, so in post-production suite, performance home theater, you can have a DLP projectors, Barco as an example, Sony, JVC, Epson, at a variety of different price points. So for projectors, we can be at LCD, LCOS, or SXRD, and DLP, one chip or 3 chip, depending on the scenario. And then on the monitor side, LCD, OLED, and a variety of different technologies with that too. So the class is a 4-day hands-on training class, and actually we're doing it virtually now, and it's working out quite well. I've done 4 of the virtual classes. So students hook in through Zoom. They have to ensure that they have the software, the measurement tools, and at least 2 monitors, and hopefully a projector to also work on. And then they'll work on that during the class, and then the other students will work on their own monitors, and then we share screens and we share menus, and people can see how the different monitors interact and work together. So it's actually working very well for the online training.
And on that topic, it's something that comes up a lot. A lot of the high-end TVs are OLED based, and now there are really no professional monitors that are OLED based. Can an OLED and an LCD of dual or single layer, can they look the same, or are there always differences even when they're calibrated?
There's always differences based on display technology. It's never a perfect match. Some of that is absolute black level, and when we talk about in the training about like BT 1886 and what that actually is, and the difference between gamma 2.2 and 2.4 in 1886, and how that varies related to absolute black level. I mean, if you have a space scene on an LCD panel versus a space scene on an OLED, they're going to look different because the absolute black level is different. So that that just in the technology types, or on LCD panels, the actual temperature of the backlight itself can affect your overall performance and measurements. So lots of things we cover in 4 days of training, and we try to cover a lot. But part of the PVA is that after you're done training, you're not actually finished the program. You're joining an association where we talk about the products going forward. We give you assistance as you calibrate new technology types, and we give you an ongoing support mechanism to keep you up to date and help you out going forward.
And we've only got a little bit of time left, but would you like to just discuss what's the minimum requirement for a calibration kit nowadays?
Well, you need to have software, hardware, and some kind of a signal generator, really. Software, CalMan is a great one. Lightspace is another one. In the class, I stick to one product because it's easier for the students to get a grasp on that. So I use the CalMan product. For a measurement tool, you should have a spectroradiometer and a tri-stimulus device, and that can be a very simple chroma 6 or a D3 X-ray meter, and then some kind of simple spectroradiometer. And we talk about the differences, why you want both versus one or the other. And then you need to have a signal generator actually ensure that you have reference patterns on the screen. Now, sometimes you can use CalMan with internal patterns and put it through Resolve and get some patterns on based on your rig and your setup. But then when you go to your client monitor or you go to another room, you really want to have a signal generator in place to make sure that you're putting out reference patterns at reference levels, being black levels at step 64, white levels at 940, that you're in Rec 709 or you're in Rec 2020 as examples.
And could you just say a little bit about the difference between a LUT calibration and hardware calibration? I know Nikki touched on that in the ASUS lecture, but can you give us your point of view from calibration?
I think every monitor should be at least pre-calibrated before you apply the LUT. The closer the monitor is performing to reference, the easier the LUT is going to have being applied and doing further color correction. So you need to have at least some basic monitor calibration before you apply a LUT. LUTs are also only as accurate as the tool is used to build them and to do the measurements. So if you're using a C6 or a D3 meter, it has certain limitations, especially as you measure towards black, that it's not going to be accurate. So the lower percentage of stimuluses on your LUT aren't going to be as accurate as using a spectroradiometer.
Okay, there's a ton of questions coming in, so I'm going to just read through those in order. Marlene asks, with connection setup, what's the best methodology with connection setup? So if you're not connected directly to the monitor, if you're going through some sort of IO box, do you calibrate through that? How do you calibrate? How do you take that into account?
No, I recommend that the IO box be disconnected initially, and you plug directly into the monitor, because you want part of your calibration is you have to ensure that your workflow, whatever your sources are, whatever your content is, every part of that needs to be properly calibrated. So you should be looking at every step of that to ensure that it's following standards. So the very first thing is disconnecting all your equipment from your monitor, plugging your signal generator into the monitor and making sure that's at reference or as close as reference as you can, and then consider adding a LUT at that point. But then you're going to plug your LUT box, whatever else, into that chain and follow your workflow through the entire process to make sure every step is accurate. And there's lots of little things that we screw up on all the time. And I'll talk about Games of Thrones season 8 all the time. That black level was wrong. I swear to it.
That's good advice. So you calibrate the monitor and then you check every piece of kit that's in the pipeline from wherever you're coming from to wherever you're getting to.
Absolutely.
We have a question about DisplayCal and Calman and Colorspace. So DisplayCal is free, I think. Can that work? And
it's sorry.
Well, and leading into that, is it just a sort of a loyalty thing between Calman and Colorspace, or do they fundamentally do different things?
No, they fundamentally do the same thing. You know, they're doing they're taking data off a meter and they're throwing it into a usable or understandable matrix that we can change the display from. But you know, with Calman as an example, they probably have 20 staff on full time. They can, as the new as a new Dell comes to market, as a new BenQ or the Asus monitor comes to market, they have the resources to actually auto calibrate, communicate with them, add LUTs into them, where some of the other smaller software packages don't have the ability to have that much of a powerful computations. Mm-hmm. And that's the same thing with DisplayCal. I mean, it's a great little program. You can plug it in. I have the version for my phone, I believe, that, you know, I can get XY data and I can do some white balance calibration. But when you're talking about multiple points for color management or looking at LUTs or looking at a 3D color cube volume or volumetric colors, you know, it just falls short.
Is the I1 display colorimeter good enough to do a calibration as a tri-stimulus? Is that good enough to work with?
It gets you started, but in the class, when I'm talking about teaching reference color work and reference calibration, you need to have a spectroradiometer. You can get by with a colorimetry research on a tri-stimulus. I have the Klein behind me right now. It's $6,900 retail, but those inherently have potential issues built into them that you can't get around without a spectroradiometer. So, bottom line, spectroradiometer.
And so the cheapest spectroradiometer is the X-Rite I1 Pro, is it?
Yeah, the I1 Pro Series 3 now. That gets you started. I like to teach in the class where you do where you build profiles. So basically, you would do 3 or 4 measurements or 4 measurements with a spectroradiometer, even an I1 Pro 2 or I1 Pro 3, the newest version, and you get white and then RGB data, and then you can apply that settings for the spectroradiometer to your D3 meter, your lesser quality tool. But you know, the D3s, even though they're lesser quality, they measure faster and they measure low light better. So they have better low light sensitivity. So between the two of them, you can get a quality calibration. But at the same time, if you're working on a Porsche, as an example, you're not going to go to the Canadian Tire store and buy your $3 wrench to work on your $100,000 automobile.
Very true, very true. I mean, there's 2 things that you get with more expensive equipment, I guess. One is the speed, and the other is the accuracy. So the I1 is about 10 nanometer steps, yes. Is it? And then you can get up to about, what's the best, about 2 photo research? 2 nanometer steps.
Photo research, Jetty, colorimetry research all have 2 nanometer options now.
Yeah, so
that's very fine resolution.
More accurate. Yeah, and things like reading the black and stuff, that's going to be light sensitivity. Is Resolve a good pattern generator? Can we get away with Resolve as a pattern generator?
Yes, you can, but then you always have to consider your workflow. And if everything you're doing is through Resolve, okay, that's one step. Then, you know, is your Resolve outputting correctly? So I always say, plug in through a reference device first before you do anything else, and then you know that you're outputting correctly, and then you get everything to match that. So yeah, I like to throw a signal generator, you know, in the mix. I mean, these little generators I have here, they're $2,500. Little Meridio unit HDMI, does 4K. REC 2020 does HDR signals. Interfaces with HDR10 and Dolby Vision, and then you know that you're using a reference signaling, and then you can make everything fall in line after that point.
Yeah, those are great troubleshooting pieces of equipment as well. So they're a good investment. What about calibrating HDR? Is the minimum kit the same, or is there something special about HDR?
No, there's nothing special about HDR really. I mean, it's just first understanding what HDR is, and then the limitations of the displays that we have. You know, a lot of the displays we're even using as client monitors, they don't go to 1,000 nits. So we have to talk about what tone mapping is, and how do we, you know, how do we account for monitors that don't go to 1,000 nits. So that's just understanding the process, but it's basically the same tool set.
And John, who is also a calibrator, by the way, very, very good calibrator, raises a very important, I think, a very good point, and I mention it in all my classes. As of today, there is no HDR monitor that is perfect in every way. Every
Absolutely.
single one of them has a major flaw, and that complicates the calibration process, right?
Totally. I think we're getting close to wrapping up here. So if people want to attend one of my training classes, love to hear from you. My email address is ica@pva.tv.
Do
ICA.
you want to
Put that in
Put
the
that
chat, Greg.
Yeah.
put that in the chat there too. And as Greg said, he's running a course next week. If anyone's interested, they can hit him up about that, or any other questions you've got for him. We do only have a couple minutes more left. Greg, that was
A lot of information,
there.
Greg. Thank you very much.
A lot of information, a lot of good
Thank you,
questions.
Greg.
A lot of people are interested.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Greg.
a lot of.
And I'm doing, I have confirmed virtual classes in January and February. And if you send the email to that address, you get 10% off, which will be $200 off the class.